Okay, good evening and welcome to our first of two sixth form recruitment webinars that we're running this November, and we hope that you enjoy this and it's thought-provoking and perhaps it'll add to your homework, which you'll no doubt have done. And hopefully it will add to the information that you have picked up from our website, which is obviously full of stuff that you need to read before deciding whether to apply or not. I hope that the webinar is encouraging for you. We've got lots of members of staff waiting to talk to you, including our sixth form office team and our subject specialists, and you should have a good range of people to get a good view of what subjects are like in the school. So my name is Stuart Smallwood, I'm the head at the school, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the background to the school and then just briefly outline what's going to happen this evening. So you should be able to see in front of you a shot that shows some of our wonderful Year 13s from last year, both boys and girls. Just to give you an idea about the size of the sixth form that we have here at Bishop's, we've got just about 400 sixth formers at the moment, and about 130 of those are girls. So about 30% girls and the rest are boys. So if you are a girl thinking of applying to Bishop's, then I think that's quite an important figure for you, because there are lots of girls. It's not going to be that you are the only girl applying to Bishop's. There are well over 100 here, and they all seem to be having a fantastic time. So that isn't just a one-off on that photo. That does reflect happy students who we have around the site, making the place really exciting and interesting all the time. Bottom right of your screen, you can see what we are going to talk about this evening. You will hear in spadefuls about academic excellence, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes' time as well. And that won't come as a surprise to you if you're thinking of applying to Bishop's, because you will probably know about our reputation, not just locally, but regionally, even nationally, in terms of the strength of our results. It's something we're really proud of, because our students do brilliantly every year at A level. We're also going to talk about the depth and breadth of the curriculum, and of course tomorrow night's webinar will deal with the arts and the social sciences and humanities, so that will complete the picture. If you're thinking of doing a spread of subjects, then you will need to tune in then as well. We will talk about the environment in terms of the support that we offer for our students, because A level, it's quite a pressurized time, and we work really hard, not only at ensuring that our new arrivals settle in, but also that all of our students feel both challenged and supportive through the time that they have with us in Year 12 and Year 13. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And then the bottom row of writing on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen says unrivaled opportunities. And we really feel that that is true of what we offer here. You will find it difficult to match what we offer at this school in all sorts of ways, and that will become clear as the evening goes on. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is roughly what's going to happen. You will have a number of staff who will be talking this evening, and they will introduce themselves as the evening goes through. This is the welcome and introduction, obviously. We'll then pitch into the sciences, and you've got them all up on the front of your screen there. About 7:30, we'll go into maths, and that includes not just maths, but core and further maths too. So we'll have the head of maths, hopefully, to entertain you, or a member of the maths department. Just after 8, we'll have physical education, and then 8:20 we'll have EPQ, which is a pretty popular option with our students. And then at 8:30 or thereabouts, we will have the final curriculum element, which is the modern foreign languages. Now we will wind up at just about 9 o'clock, and we'll attempt to answer any kind of short-term questions through the webinar as we go. But of course, if you have any questions which are not answered, then you can always contact us online. That's very welcome. And of course, we have got a big open evening coming up in November. I'm sure the details of that will emerge as the evening goes on. And there are also all the relevant dates are on the website. Web address is at the bottom there, and you will find the details of how to apply to us there too. Could I have the next slide, please? And I'm feeling a little bit like Chris Whitty as I go through there, but that's no bad thing, I think. Now, I'm just going to deal with the academic excellence aspect of what was on that first screen. And you can see the evidence for that on that number there, 81% at grades A star to B. That's pretty good. It puts us amongst the top schools in the country, not just locally. But what's the important thing about that is it's just a number. What's really important is because our students are achieving at that level, they can then have the widest possible range of onward destinations. So we have lots of our students applying to Russell Group universities, including Oxford and Cambridge, and between 60 and 70% generally go to one of those top 24 universities in the country. And the rest inevitably end up at one of the other competitive universities or doing a high grade degree apprenticeship. We have lots of medics, lots of other competitive courses, engineering and so on. And this last year was entirely normal in that we sent on 11 candidates to Oxford and Cambridge to have a wonderful time at those universities. Now, that's great. But we're so fortunate that we are surrounded here in southern England and further afield with really prestigious universities, and that's where our students end up. It's a really exciting time for them when they decide where they're going to go and then work to get those fantastic results. So that's what we mean by academic excellence. It's a number, but it's what it means individually for every one of our students that really counts. Now, I'm going to stop at that point and I'm going to hand on to the head of sixth form, Zoe Lambard, to talk a little bit more about what the sixth form diet offers.
Hello, yes, and welcome and good evening. Can I go on to the next slide? Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about what we offer at Bishop's in the sixth form, and it's a very standard very academic offering of A levels. If I could have the next slide, sorry, go on to the next slide. You can see the list of A levels there, the list of subjects we offer. We have fairly high entry requirements. I think they're highest in the region of 52 point score average. This is for a very specific reason, and that is if you're coming to us, you're coming because you want to study at a high level, you want to achieve really good grades, and you want to study with like-minded people. So that's a 6.5 grade average across your top 8 subjects with a 5 in English and maths. All these details are on our website. We, as I say, offer this range of subjects, and most of our students take 3 subjects with a 4th option of AS Music, EPQ or Core Maths. However, some do go on and take a 4th A level, further maths being particularly popular in that. A lot of these subjects you'll explore in more depth through this webinar and through tomorrow night's webinar, which focuses on arts and humanities. Can I have the next slide, please? So we aren't going to talk a lot about our location and what facilities are on offer tonight, because there are other opportunities for you actually to come and see them for yourselves. At the end of tonight's webinar, we will put a few dates up, but the first one is 3rd of November for our big open evening where you can see for yourself the school, talk to subject specialists, talk to students, hear a bit more detail about the school, about societies, about all sorts of things. And that's 5:30 p.m. on the 3rd of November. And then there are other opportunities, I think the next one being 4th of December, for you to actually come in the daylight and see the school for yourself. So if you're not familiar with Bishop's, those are the things to sign up to, again, available on our website. Okay. We have, as well as our academic side, I'm going to talk very briefly about our extracurricular and our support systems, both of which are very important to making Bishop's Wordsworth what it is. We don't have a tutor system as such because we take in a lot of students in at sixth form, and there's a very, very short time to get to know you, to write references, to give specific individual guidance. So we feel that a one-to-one mentoring system works best, and our students agree with this. So what happens is you will be assigned a mentor, which is normally a subject teacher who you will see maybe 2 times a week through lessons, but also on a one-to-one basis twice a half term, where you can discuss specific issues. And what that also means is that you might get a little lie-in if you don't have lessons in the morning because you're not coming in to tutor. We have a full-time pastoral support assistant. We have a full-time careers advisor who you'll be hearing from shortly. And we have all the other support systems that a school offers, so counsellor, nurse, chaplain, etc. We also have a system of supervised study, which I've included under support systems because it's a hugely important support to getting you as students used to studying independently. You do have more freedom and more responsibility as you head into sixth form from year 11 at Bishop's, and we need to help you organise your time wisely so that you can maximise all the myriad of opportunities that coming into sixth form brings you. Sports, music, attending lectures, pursuing other interests, volunteering, all sorts of things. And supervised study is one way of doing that, where you are managing your workload with the supervision of a teacher, but still managing it independently. And as you go into year 13, we offer a little bit more freedom, and then obviously as you go on to university, etc., you will be prepared and ready to really make the most of that. So, okay, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Armstrong, who is our careers specialist. She's the careers advisor who is full-time in school and a very important part of our sixth form.
Good evening. Very nice to see you all here today. I look after the careers in Bishop's. I am a qualified careers advisor and I'm also the careers leader within school, which means I oversee the whole package. And what we offer is a comprehensive programme which will explore all the options to you available after you leave year 13. So that's higher education. And whilst it's true that most of our students are interested in going to university, that's not all that we concentrate on. Last year, I was delighted that our students actually secured places at some of the most wonderful degree apprenticeships, JP Morgan, Smith & Williamson, etc. And we have had people in the past go to the BBC, go to BAE Systems, a large engineering firm. So it really is a broad range of options that students have. We bring a lot of people into school to talk to you, from people and professionals in careers and also from higher education, so that you can begin to get the tools that you need so that when you go out to visit universities or make contact with employers, you know what questions to ask and how to make a great application. So I think for us, measuring success is that you get your first choice of what you want to do, whether that's a particular university or whether that's an apprenticeship with an employer somewhere. We have a lot of students who apply to medicine and veterinary each year, particularly medicine, and I was very delighted for the first time that we got somebody in to do dentistry. I've never had a dentist before, so we were really pleased that someone took the plunge and decided to apply for it and secured a place this year. COVID put a bit of a dampener on it, but I'm really pleased that international applications are picking up again. I've got a couple of year 13s who are interested in applying to the US, and we've had students go all over the world. So we are pretty familiar with all the different application systems that are available in Europe and the US and Australia and Canada. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, we can help you and advise you to do that as well. Oxford and Cambridge get a little bit more information because it's really important that you understand what you're signing up to, really, that you're going to meet their demands and able to cope and enjoy yourself whilst you're there. So there's quite a lot of information about Oxford and Cambridge because they're slightly different to every other university out there. But whatever your interest is and whatever you would like to do after you leave us, we're very happy to help. And alongside all of that, you can have as many individual guidance sessions as you want so that you make up your mind, you're making informed decisions and you make a successful application. So thank you. Next slide, please. So are you doing this one or shall I carry on?
You're welcome to continue.
Thank you. So alongside your academics that you've heard about and other opportunities, of course, there's that dimension in a sixth form and especially at Bishops that you can get involved with as much as you want to. So we have a very big sports department and that's divided into sport, team sports and things like that. But we also have BWS Adventure, which is much more about expeditions and doing D&V and all of that sort of trekking outdoors sort of opportunity. Music is enormous at Bishops. We have an enormous choir. It's about 70 strong at the moment for both boys and girls. And within that, there are much smaller choirs and ensembles which perform at all different things. Actually, throughout the area, we've been to Wells recently to the cathedral to perform there. This week, we've been performing in Salisbury and we've had a music masterclass for our pianists. We also have an enrichment programme and we offer a complete variety of activities. So if you want to learn about how to manage your money, you can do that. If you'd like to enhance your cookery skills in preparation for leaving home, then you're able to do that as well. So at the beginning of the year, you'll be offered the whole range of what's available and you can make your decisions about what you want to do. If sport is your thing, then we offer the Community Sports Leader Award, which you would do through the whole year. And you'll go into primary schools and enhance your leadership within a sports setting. We're delighted that so many speakers come into Bishops. We usually welcome about 70 plus speakers from all sorts of subjects and topics and careers that will come in to give you an idea of what else is out there for you to participate in. And of course, there's volunteering as well. I think one of the good things about Bishops is that if we don't offer something that you're interested in and you want to start up a club or a society that will cover it, then please do go ahead. Find a few like-minded people, come and see us, and we'll see if it's feasible to start it. A really good example of that was the Law Society, which started last year, and it's growing and very popular club now for those students who are not only interested in perhaps studying law in the future and becoming lawyers themselves, but also people who are just interested in the information that surrounds that, because actually the law affects everybody. If you'd like to take part in the Duke of Edinburgh Award, you certainly can do that. And there are lots of opportunities for not only the expedition part, but your service and skill parts of the award as well. And of course, on top of all of that, I think trips go out all the time to enhance your learning, whether that's on an enrichment or whether that is to do with your subject specifically. I know just after half term, the Politics Society are going to the Houses of Parliament. A few weeks ago, I accompanied our Director of Sport and took a range of students up to an investment bank in the City of London so the students could actually see what really happens behind the doors and talk to some young people there who had just started their careers. So there's lots to get involved with, whether that's sport or music or drama, because we use the local theatre down near the fire station to put on a production each year. So something for everybody to get involved with. Have the next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the subject part of the evening. And as you can see, we are going to start with the sciences. The sciences department is huge. at Bishops. They're very popular subjects for students to take, either one as part of 2 other humanities subjects, or go the whole hog and do all your A-levels in the science department. So this evening we're going to start with biology. So Mrs. Madzarovich, are you there, please? No? Okay. Could we go on to chemistry if Dr. Maunder is around, please, and then come back to biology in a moment. Good evening, Dr. Maunder. Are you happy to take the reign of chemistry, please?
Yes, of course I am. If I could have the chemistry
just
slides in a second, thank you.
Okay, would you like the next one, or are you happy with that?
Yes, please. Next one, please.
Thank you.
And then the next one again, please. So A-level chemistry at Bishops, we do the OCR-A specification, and that's very much a content-based course. So we learn the theory and then we look at applying it in various different situations. It's an A-level specification that was developed in conjunction with the Royal Society of Chemistry. So therefore it's a very well respected one and feeds well into lots of university degrees. It aims to develop not only your knowledge but also skills as well. So for that reason, for example, we would be very much looking at develop your problem solving skills, your numerical, mathematical skills, as well as learning the chemistry as well. So for that reason, it feeds into lots of different degree courses and other options after A-level. We'll see more about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So on our lessons, they're taught by a very experienced team of chemistry teachers. We've got, well, I hate to think how many years experience of teaching, and all the lessons will take place in our dedicated chemistry labs for practical lessons. And other rooms as well, and our practicals are very much integrated into the course, so we don't see that it as an add-in, but it's an integral part of studying chemistry. And some of the practicals we'll do, we will use to apply the content, and others we'll be using in an investigative way to actually find out and develop our own theories using the observations and results that we get. Next slide, please. So as I say, we have 2 lessons a week, one of which tends to be for the practical work, but it depends upon the topic obviously that we're studying. And we try and make sure within those lessons we have a good range of activities, so that it might be just getting the facts down. Sometimes it's group work, sometimes it's using information to try and work things out. And very much that we are getting you to start thinking independently and working things out for yourselves. Next slide, please. So as I said, we are aiming to develop lots of skills which would lead you obviously into a chemistry degree, but also from chemistry, there are so many other courses that chemistry would lead you into as well. So you could do things obviously like medicine. Medicine's a huge one, but there are other things within medicine, not just doctors. So you can physiotherapy, we've had pharmacy, of course, as well, radiography, that kind of thing. All of those kinds of skills that we develop in chemistry will be relevant for those. And then there are the new biotechnology areas as well that chemistry will be very, very relevant to. Next slide. So within chemistry, as I said, there's lots of opportunities within our lessons. We try and build our lessons in so that we are really extending and applying the knowledge. So we're looking to very much stretch and extend you within the lessons. So there's lots of extracurricular activities which are designed to help that, as well as the content within the lesson. Although we also recognise that there's not every topic that you're going to engage with and find as easy as others. And so we run support sessions so that we can help give you extra input should you need it on particular topics. And those run throughout year 13, where we look back at our year 12 work, and there are other opportunities within the year for those. And our teachers are always available to help support you as well. Next slide. So chemistry is a very hard A-level, and so for that reason we've got quite high entry requirements. So it has to be a 7 in dual award, or a 7 in chemistry GCSE, but we've also put in that we would like you to have a 7 in maths. That's because there is a very strong mathematical content within A-level chemistry. So at GCSE, for example, you might have describe rates of reaction in terms of if we do such and such, it will speed the reaction up. At A-level, we'd be putting that to numbers, so we'll be applying equations to that, so that we can quantify what we're doing rather than just describe it. Next slide, please. So as I said, we've got lots of opportunities for extracurricular within science and chemistry in particular. So there are BAYS talks, which is British Association of Young Scientists, where we get in lots of speakers from all the different sciences, so chemistry, biology, physics, etc. And the other teachers, I'm sure, will talk about those. So those are ones where we can look to expand what you learn from beyond the curriculum. And recently, for example, this year we've had a chemist coming in talking about carbon capture and how we can capture carbon dioxide and potentially use it to build up polymers, which is an exciting way of not only capturing our carbon, but actually producing something useful at the end of it too. We have the Chemistry Olympiad, and not only do we enter students for that, we had over 60 entering last year, but we run support sessions building up to the Chemistry Olympiad so that our Year 12s can have access to the competition, and actually saying that you've got an award on your UCAS application from Year 12 for something that's supposed to be a Year 13 competition is a huge thing to make you stand out from the rest of the crowd. We've been down to Southampton University to do twilight practical sessions using equipment in their undergraduate labs, and we actually had 2 students who were able to go and shadow some PhD students during the summer and learn about research as well. So next slide. So as I said, we're a very well respected A-level by top universities. There's a wide recognition that chemistry is a difficult subject. Some of my students in the past have said that it needs to come with a bit of a health warning, but it is a hugely rewarding subject. You gain so many skills, and science or chemistry actually underpins pretty much all of the other sciences, the content that you learn. We've had great success, so you've seen the A star to B for the school as a whole, but we'd like to celebrate our A star and A. In the past 2 years, we have got nearly 2/3 of our students with grades at that, including last year when they actually took the exams rather than those being teacher assessed grades as well. Next slide. So I'd like to end there. If you need any further details, then obviously you can ask questions here, or you can contact me via the email there, or look on the chemistry page on the school website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Maunder. We've had a question. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of chemistry to a medical application, please?
So if you are thinking of studying medicine at university, then chemistry is the one A-level that all universities actually require. So it's the only one that's the essential one to study medicine. Other ones are really great and useful, like biology, etc. And I would encourage anybody who's thinking about medicine to be doing biology as well. But chemistry is the only essential one.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Because we've got a lot to fit in, I'm going to now move on to Mr. Mike Thorne, who is our Director of Science and also oversees, at the moment with this hat on, the Physics Department. So hello, Mike, could you talk a little bit about the Physics A-level, please?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Nice to see you. Yes, absolutely. I'll be wearing a few different hats this evening, so I'll pop back and forth. There's been some definite fighting talk there from Dr. Maunder about which is the most fundamental and underpinning science. And I would, of course, also stress that physics does have quite a lot of medical content. We do have a medical physics topic in the Year 13. which many students enjoy, but of course is very much not considered essential by universities to study physics if you would like to become a doctor. So really, I thought I'd choose a few slides that I felt summed up studying physics at Bishop's, and a lot of it goes back to that idea of enrichment and what we can offer our students. Similar to the chemistry that you've just been hearing about, we do a great deal of hands-on practical work in physics. You can see just a couple of the experiments that we've been up to recently. We've got building motors down the bottom right there, playing with the Van de Graaff generator in the top right, the bottom left, some thermal physics experiments. And also in the top left of our photos there was a group a few years ago who we took out, this was pre-COVID of course, but who we had the great fortune of taking out to Kennedy Space Center, and they did a brief rocketry school while at the Kennedy Space Center, which was just absolutely phenomenal. A real trip of a lifetime, that one. Physicists have been keen to try and explore some residentials. Of course, COVID has been a bit of a difficulty for us, but we're really hopeful that we'll be able to get out to the CERN particle collider next year as well. So that is a hopeful one for the future. If I could have the next slide, please. So I'm showing here just a little bit about what studying physics is like. On the first slide here, we've got the AS, or the Year 12 content, which really focuses around two areas, which are both organic growths of the GCSE. So on the one side of the course, the module 3 there, forces of motion, that's really mostly an extension of a lot of the forces topic and the energy topic as well. The students that you'll all be familiar with from the GCSE. We've also got a module there which is entirely practical work, the development of practical skills. And I would really stress that physics is a very hands-on lesson. We have over, I believe it's 28 different practicals that we complete just during the Year 12. So that works out at very nearly one a week. And during those lessons, students will be designing, you'll be planning experiments, and unlike in GCSE where you might be given a methodology, there's a lot more to do with building your own methodologies, anticipating the equipment that you might require, making those requisitions, making those requests, and then having a bit of a play around, see if we can get things working. There is a separate practical endorsement. That's true of all of the sciences, so your biology, chemistry, physics, and geology as well. And that's a separately reported grade, and we've had 100% pass rate for that as long as we've been running the qualifications. If I could have the next slide, please. So here we're seeing a little bit more of the Year 12 content, in particular that first module, the module 4, electrons, waves, and photons, which is, I think, where things start to get really exciting for me. So the electrons course is more about DC electrics and circuitry, an extension of the GCSE. Same goes with waves, but then photons is where we start to get into the real meat of what A-level physics is all about. The photons module deals with some of the more complicated ideas about the nature of light, wave-particle duality, and how we can understand particles behaving as waves and waves behaving as particles. It's where we start to get into the sort of real nitty-gritty of things. Then in Year 13, we've got a really diverse course in physics. So we take all of those ideas studied in Year 12, kind of springboard them into looking at some specific areas of study. So we look at astrophysics, we look at medical physics, field physics in terms of gravitation, electric and magnetic fields. We look at particles and radioactivity, and there's where the link, of course, with the CERN super collider comes in. And yeah, it's a really exciting course that offers some real diversity, a little bit of something for everyone. Year 13 is where a lot of students sort of find the particular thrust for where they want to continue studying. So in terms of careers that Mrs. Armstrong was mentioning earlier, I believe engineering is the most popular choice at Bishop's for single degrees. That, of course, is a bit of a mixed bag because there's actually lots of different engineering courses that you can follow. So we have a lot of mechanical engineers. Similarly, we have quite a few apply for civil, electrical, And also, of course, the ever popular aeronautics and astronautics as well. So a real mixed bag there in terms of what we have students going on to. I believe also we had our first ever robotics engineering last year, which was particularly exciting. I'm looking forward to that student coming back in a few years and telling us all about what's going on there. So if I could have the next slide, please. So, oh dear, it appears as though our results are blank. Oh, that's rather concerning, isn't it? Well, let me at least fill you in with the most recent year. So in 2022, we were absolutely thrilled to have some of our strongest results that we've ever had. We had 42% of our students scored an A-star direct, and 68% received either A stars or A's. And we had, I believe, well, we had 100% A star to E, and I think somewhere in the region of only a few lower grades. So we were really pleased, really thrilled with those results, and I think that reflects, the sort of engagement that we have in lessons. As I say, the very hands-on practical approach is quite unforgiving at times because you have to be involved in every lesson. There's no sort of backseat approach, but also the enrichment and the wider opportunities that are available to you. And again, as Dr. Maunda was spelling out, we've got lots to do with the physics Olympiads and various challenges, as well as a huge number of different speakers that we have in. So last year we had Professor Marika Taylor from Southampton University telling us all about black holes. We had a LASCAR engineering and computing workshop going on. We had a talk about the physics of fuel cells and what we might be able to do in the future with transportation technology. So, a real range of different things going on in the department. Small plug here, if you're interested to see more of us, I am a prolific one for putting out the photos on Instagram of various different things occurring all around the science block. So you can find us at BWS Science, and you can see a little bit about what we're up to there. So as Mrs. Armstrong said, I will be back soon to talk about geology, as my background's in geophysics. And I'll also be around should you have any questions about general balancing of science A levels and wider science activities. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thorne, could I just ask one particular question at this point, please? I know a lot of students are a little bit worried about perhaps not doing maths with physics. Are they? Is it necessary to have maths as an A level if you're doing physics? What would you advise?
Yeah, I think that it's certainly a question I get quite often. We do have students studying physics without maths, and it is certainly an option to consider. It's not probably the recommended route, in that it does make sixth form study a little bit more challenging. Obviously, the physics A level is heavily mathematical. 60% of the content in the exam paper is maths based. So it is, that sort of element of mathematical problem solving is really at the heart of what we're doing. That said, the level of maths required doesn't technically go beyond that of the maths A level, so there's no requirement to necessarily be studying both. But what you do get, of course, is a great deal more practice if you are someone that's also studying maths at the same time. So it's certainly the recommended route, but it can be a bit unduly restrictive for some individuals. So it is an option. We have a cohort this year of around 65, and I believe there's about 8 or 9 that are doing it without maths. So we just offer a little bit more support, a little bit more practice for those individuals. So we expect just a little bit more, but it is an option if it needs to be considered.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now I am going to head back to biology. Welcome, Ms. Madzarovic. Hopefully her technology will work.
I hope you can hear me this time.
Loud and clear. Thank you very much.
I had to reboot everything because just wasn't picking me up at all. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about doing the biology A-level at Bishop Wordsworth. So if we could just have the next slide, thank you. And you can see that we follow the OCR biology A-level course. The codes I've just put there are the AS, but we really only offer the A-level course. And I'm head of biology, so my name's Shirley Mazarovich. We also have 4 other specialist biology teachers in the department. And in general, every class will have 2 teachers, which covers the 4 periods of biology that we have each week. The lovely picture that you can see there on the screen was knitted by a colleague and shows the rat dissection, which we do offer sometimes as a little bit of extra in the department, but we don't expect you to knit your own. If we could just go on to the next slide, thank you. So quite often people wonder why they should study biology, and there are lots of different reasons for doing so. First of all, I would say is because it is a very interesting and very varied course, and it allows people to have the opportunity to do things such as theory and practical work. So it isn't just a book type of course. It does give you a lot more hands-on opportunities. It is, of course, relevant to a great number of degrees, and not always the ones that you immediately think of. It isn't always just the ones that you consider like medicine and dentistry and all that type of thing. It includes things like law. So people who want to study law quite often find biology quite a useful course to study, because it does give you that background in things like forensics and stuff, which people quite often need these days. So from there, we have a huge number of different types of courses and careers that can lead directly from a biology course, and many people find that it supports a lot of their applications. Just going on to the fact that it widens your scientific skills, and I mention this one because quite often people realise that biology is slightly different to, for example, chemistry and physics, in that we have it's more written work, and you might be expected to actually put together a bit more of an argument in longer answers, and so it's less maths based, though maths does play a part. But actually, to be honest, I would say these days it's really important to be able to present your arguments and be able to put your points of view and evaluate the data, and even if you are not doing that in science, it's really important skill in any part of your in your studies. So we also have a very highly structured and well supported course. We've spent quite a few years making sure that the course is being sort of honed to provide the best kind of support and structure for our students. So we have good resources, and we make sure that you're really well supported throughout. And generally speaking, the students do enjoy the course, and we have very few that actually drop out. So I would say we tend to gain students rather than lose them over the course of the year. We could just go on to the next slide. Okay, so we're just going to cover what you could expect to see in the course. So overall, the course is divided up into 6 modules. The first module is the practical skills in biology, and we cover that over years 12 and 13. I suspect you've been, although I wasn't able to catch some of this because my tech wasn't working, I'm sure you've heard already about the fact that the practical skills are examined through coursework effectively, and you get a pass from this at the end of the 2 years, and so that runs throughout the whole of year 12 and 13, and so we would integrate that throughout the course. In year 12 we study modules 2, 3 and 4, and these really do provide the foundations for the work you do in year 13. We have foundations in biology, which includes things like cells and biochemistry and so on. Module 3 is a little bit more physiology based, and tends to be involving things like gas exchange and animal transport and immunity and that type of thing. Sorry, not immunity, that's in module 4. And then we have biodiversity, evolution and disease, which is our module 4 topic, and that covers the sort of the bigger issues, the sort of bringing things together issues. So generally speaking, it provides the detail that you want for understanding biology at a really sort of fundamental level, but it also gives you the scope to see things in a wider context. So we would reckon to finish that course sometime around about May normally, and then we move on into the year 13 work. So this will be module 5, which is communication, homeostasis, energy. That covers things such as nervous control, hormonal control, lots of stuff for photosynthesis and respirations. We build on the foundations that we put in place from year 12. And then we have the bigger topics like genetics and evolution and ecosystems, which is part of module 6. And so the aim of our course is to finish really all the sort of the academic side of stuff by about the March of the year that you take your actual A-levels. So we do work at quite a bit of pace, and we have a big course to get through, but because it's really structured and we're really well organised, we do make sure that we get through in the time that we're aiming for. So overall then, the thing to remember about the biology course at Bishops is that we do have a very organised and pace-led course. There's an example of the sorts of things that you would see in the first term. You've got your 2 teachers there, and you can see that we're covering quite a wide range of the topics by the time we get to Christmas, which is at the end of week 14. So in order to help you and to speed up the process, what we provide is topic books for every topic that you do. The topic books contain things like the specification statements, any tasks that you might be asked to do, tables and sort of activities that we would normally give out on worksheets. They're all compiled into a workbook, and they also give you a good range of past paper questions. The aim of the workbooks is to give you a way of coordinating all the information that you need. It isn't the only thing you need, but it does give you quite a good start on each topic, and they've been really popular with our students. They find them really helpful, and there's a real sense of progression as you work through them. So we use quite a different range of learning platforms, such as textbooks. We also use online education programs, and obviously we use Microsoft Teams, and we've integrated quite a lot of tasks into Teams so that we can give you feedback online as well as the more traditional approaches. So I just mentioned earlier the practical skills. So we integrate the PAG tasks into the course, and really we expect every student to pass this section. If there's any danger that a student won't, then we sort of intervene, and we usually get involved in year 13. And we've run last year, for example, we ran a day in the February half term, which allowed people to pick up any of the tasks that they hadn't done. And the skills are really important because they are examined in the actual exams in terms of what you know. So we build on those skills and we really work on them as we go through the course. And we carry out a field work day as well, which is under the guidance of the Leeson House team. And we have a really good day, although to be fair, this year we picked the one day that it was torrential rain, but that didn't stop us. We just kept going, and we got the data anyway, and we came back with all the stuff that we needed. So, you know, we intrepid bunch, we tend to get out there and give the geologists a bit of a run for the money. So people often ask me, will I be able to study biology? So the first thing you should think of is what you're going to get in your GCSE. You really need to be aiming at a grade 7 or higher in GCSE biology, and that could be double award. And but ideally, obviously, GCSE biology is the perfect start. And most of the GCSE courses that you study these days will provide you with a very good foundation for A-level. So we tend to find that the transition into the A-level course is not as hard as it might be perhaps some of the other subjects, because we do build it up, we build you up slowly, and we don't really want people to go into the A-level course and struggle right at the start. We want to give you the skills and help you to develop those skills so that you gradually improve as you go through the course. And so because of that, very few of our students will drop out at the beginning. But one thing I will just remind you of, and I'm sure you'll hear this from every subject, you do need to work really hard for the whole 2 years. For anyone who's sort of cruised through GCSE with the sort of like the burst at the end, I think that it's really worth remembering that that doesn't really work at A-level. You do have to be prepared to work at it. And I think that's an important point, because it also tells you if you want to do the subject, you should want to work at it, and it should be something that is not onerous. And if that's how it feels, then perhaps you might want to think about doing a different subject, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. So Also, another thing we're often asked about is good subject combinations. So you can study biology on its own, and quite a lot of people do. And so I do have a fair number of students who will study something like a language, and then maybe something like business or something like that along with biology. So there's no reason why you can't. It isn't essential that you study other sciences. I would just say that if you are thinking about going on to study a biology type degree, then studying chemistry will increase your options. Lots of courses will insist on chemistry as part of your application. And but other good combinations for subjects, I mean, apart from all the usual ones, we've got physics, maths, geology, geography, psychology, PE and design tech. And I would say that on the whole, those are the most common combinations that people do. But I have also had people that take English and art and that type of thing as well. So we do have quite a range of different types of combinations for biology. So we obviously celebrate success throughout the school, and one of the ways in which we have been very successful in the biology department is the numbers. We are a very big department. We have a large number of students. The numbers are going up every year, but we also measure the success by how many students go on to study biology-based careers in the future. And actually, that's a large number of our students do follow a biology type course, and obviously the ones that you mostly think about, things like medicine and so on, we have a large number of students that apply for that. And as we mentioned, we had somebody that did dentistry last year, first time in a little while. We've also had quite a few people that go on to do things like biomed and so on, and also veterinary as well. Those are really common courses. In terms of outcomes, 100% pass rate, A star to E. We haven't had anyone get anything less than that in quite a few years. And on the whole, about 90% A star to C, which the vast majority of those are A stars to Bs. So I think this previous year we had 97% A stars and A's. So a really good number. If you are a high achiever and you really want to push yourself and have the opportunity to do well, then we can certainly make sure that you will achieve those grades. If you've got the potential, we will get it out of you without any doubt. So here's just a list finally of some of the courses that people have gone on to study in recent years. So it's quite a wide range there. As I said, we've a lot of people that do things like medicine and veterinary sciences, but biomed is also a really common one. Neuroscience is another one that we have a lot of people doing. And subjects like psychology as well at degree level, they really do insist that you have biology in most cases. So it's also a really important A level for those kind of subjects. We've had quite a few people in recent years going off to do things like agriculture as well, and other sort of activities linked to that. So we're certainly branching out and having quite a wide range. So I think that's probably me coming to the end now of, I haven't talked too much about things like enrichment because I know that Mr. Thorne has mentioned that, but obviously we do take part in all the enrichment activities like BAYS and so on, and the British Association of Young Scientists and the Young Medics set up their own society and so on. So we support them in all those ways. So I'll hand it to Mrs. Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed. That was really informative. To stay on schedule, I'm going to zip straight over to Mrs. Mesnard, Head of Psychology. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about the Psychology A-level and how it works, please, Nikki.
Hi, I am Nikki Mesnard. I am Head of Psychology at Bishop School. Hopefully, can you hear me? Just checking. Yeah, all good. Okay, so I'm going to keep it quite brief, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about psychology at Bishop School. Next slide, please. So psychology is a relatively new subject. I started psychology here in 2019. As you can see, we had 25 students and it's become a very, very popular school. We got 48 students in 2020, join us in year 12, 54 the following year, and this year we have had 56 students. So it's growing bigger every year, which is fantastic. And I do like to think that's because students really enjoy it. So I'm just going to, for those of you who don't know what psychology is, because it isn't usually a subject that can be studied at GCSE, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what it is, what topics we study, just so that you can get an idea, because you might not have actually thought about studying psychology before, and maybe in this talk you will start to think that it could be a good subject for you. Okay, so in year 12, these are just some of the topics that we will study in psychology. So we have social influence. This is the study of humans in a group. So we learn about how people behave, how people conform and obey to authority figures. We link this to cases such as the Holocaust, and we try and explain why people obey. We also do memory and forgetting, which is a very interesting topic. You get to take part in loads of in-class memory experiments to find out why you remember things and also why you forget things. And we also look at eyewitness testimony. So if the police interview you after witnessing a crime, you can learn about why you might forget certain elements of the crime or why you might have good memories about certain parts. Psychopathology is a very popular topic. This is the one that you would traditionally associate with psychology. So this is the study of mental health. Over the course of the 2 years, we cover obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, phobias, and schizophrenia as part of psychopathology. And we also have attachment, which is the study of child relationships with parents. But more interestingly, we focus on what can go wrong, and we look at cases of neglect, children who are brought up in orphanages, and how that can affect their later development in future life, how it would affect their academics and their ability to make later relationships. So you do learn a lot about yourself in studying the topic of attachment. Next slide, please. In going into year 13, we study my favorite topic of biopsychology. This is where biology and psychology really mix. We study a lot about synaptic transmission in the brain, different levels of neurotransmitters. We look at areas of the brain and what happens if one area gets damaged, how it can affect our personality, and also how our body and our brain can recover from trauma to help you continue functioning. We study gender. Quite a controversial topic at the moment. So we look at biological definitions of gender and more social definitions. We also look at gender dysphoria and people who transition from one gender to another. One of the topics everyone looks forward to in year 13 is forensic psychology. This is all about serial killers, murderers. It's pretty grim, but it sets you up really nicely if you're interested in doing a combined degree of psychology and criminology or a pure criminology degree. So we learn about what makes somebody into a criminal and how we can help treat them, or whether they would be best off served in a prison. Finally, there's a massive topic of research methods. You can just see in the top right, this is worth double all the other topics, and it's just like you would do at GCSE science, where we conduct experiments, we control the variables, we collect data, analyze the data, and write up a report. So that's a big component of psychology as well. Psychology is a strange science, and I say that I do genuinely believe it belongs in the science department, but it is a combination subject. So it's about 10% maths, about 40% are pulled from biology and a little bit of chemistry, and about 50% of the exam is more essay writing. So you will be expected to have basic skills in both sciencey subjects and to be able to write an essay. The results, we obviously only have 2 years of results given that it's a new subject and due to COVID, but we're really proud of the results in the psychology department. In 2021, in the teacher assessed grades, there was 100% A star to C and 84% A star to B. I was thrilled with that, but then this year in 2022, with these examinations, 96% A star to C, and 90% of students got an A star, an A or a B. So hopefully, if you do choose to do psychology and you're willing to work hard at it, you can get there's a good chance you'll get some really good results. Finally, what sort of careers are there in psychology? Well, you can go into careers in psychology. There are loads of them, but you could just take it as a subject because you enjoy it. Many students do. But if you're interested, some of the directly related careers are things like clinical psychology, counselling, forensic psychology, educational psychology. Lots of students do PE and psychology, so you can go on to do sports psychology. Recently, in the last few years, I've had a few students who go on to study neuroscience at university as well. And then more broadly related, psychology will help you in a career in media, HR, business, government and policy, kind of more distantly related subjects where psychology is still pretty useful. Entry requirements for psychology, the usual Bishop's entry requirements plus a grade 7 in either maths or science. So you could get a grade 7 in maths, or you could get a 7 in biology, chemistry or physics, or a grade 7 in a combined science. Any of those would be absolutely fine, plus the grade 6 in English language. That's just because we want to make sure that you're comfortable doing essay writing, because like I said, a big component of the exam, you will have to write extended answers. And I think that's everything for me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mesnard. And we've had a question come in. What subjects do you feel are good to combine with psychology at A level?
That is a tricky one because, like I said, it's such a broad subject. I'd say the highest combination for psychology would be with biology. Having said that, I do have a lot of students, like I said, who do PE, and I have a lot of students that do weird combinations. So we've got lots that do English and lots that do art, and lots that do chemistry as well. So most closely related, I'd have to say biology.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And to finish the science department's presentation, I'd like to go back to Mr. Thorne with a different hat on this time as head of geology. So please tell us all about rocks.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I'll just swap over now. So if I could have the next slide, please, because I think geology, first and foremost, is a visual science. It's a hands-on, it's a practical, it's a field subject, and we need to get out there and see it, don't we, if we're to understand what geology is. So in a similar vein to psychology, I think it's just worth spending a moment talking about what geology actually is, because it's not a subject that very many are likely to have been able to study at GCSE. And there's a little bit of exposure from geography. If you've been doing a combined science GCSE, it's possible you've had a little bit of exposure from chemistry. But for most people, it's something completely new and something different. So what is geology? Well, first and foremost, it's the study of the Earth, the history of the Earth, the organisms that have lived on the Earth, and how all these wonderful and bizarre things have changed over time. It's not just about rocks. But I, of course, must say we do spend some time looking at rocks, because if we're going to try and understand what the history of the Earth is, we've got to look at the clues that it leaves behind. And that would predominantly be the geological record, which is our igneous, our sedimentary, and our metamorphics, and also the fossils that we might find within them. So we do spend a reasonable amount of time looking at rock samples. We go out in the field quite a lot as well, and you can see here some of the photographs from previous field locations. So we've got up in the top left there a number of field trips around the South Coast and the Jurassic Coast, which of course has some of the world's best geology right here, right in front of us, which is just a wonderful thing to go and be able to explore that. Both myself and Dr. Smallwood, huge fans of geological themed cakes, or really cakes at all are pretty good, but particularly the geologically themed ones. And you can see some of that up in the top right hand side there, a student who made an ammonite creation a couple of years ago. And then down at the bottom, we've got one of my favourite field sites, which is the Lulworth Cove, and the crumple, the folding of rocks that's occurred as these huge geological forces, these tectonic forces have squeezed and squashed the rocks down on the south coast. And also on the bottom left hand side there, a picture from one of our previous field trips. That one's glacial walking out in Iceland, which is just an absolutely phenomenal thing to get to do. Of course, much like I mentioned with the physics, it can be a bit of a challenge, or has been a bit of a challenge with COVID, to get out in the field, or particularly the residentials. But we will be looking to hopefully see as much as can be managed really in the coming year. If I could have the next slide, please. So I think in order to explain what geology is, it's worth showing a little bit about what the course might actually entail. So as with the other sciences, as with the biology, the chemistry and the physics, we have a module which is practical orientated, and that's the field skills module at the start there. There's a minimum requirement of field trips, so you can be absolutely assured that you will be out there taking a look at some of these different areas, and you can see some of the places that we've been to for residentials in the past: Iceland, Tenerife, the Bay of Naples, stretching back a few years there. The most of the year 12 is spent on this module called Foundations in Geology, because I always say to students that studying geology is a bit like picking biology as an A-level, but not knowing what a cell is. So there's a lot of learning to do. It's quite a steep learning curve, but the nice thing is, of course, you're in a class with a group of students who know precisely the same at the beginning. You know, we're all kind of learning this from the beginning. We're all developing these ideas at the same pace, and that makes for quite a nice discursive attitude in the classroom. We do have recently we've had rather small sets in geology, and that gets a lot more conversation going. It means that there's a great deal more group work, and we can really get around and have a conversation about what we're looking at. So we do lots of hands-on samples and things like that in that second module there, Foundations in Geology. We've also got a module on tectonics, something that the geographers will be familiar with. We don't say it's essential to have studied geography in order to study geology at A-level. Quite a lot of students actually do geology and geography. So that's a reasonably popular option to study both of those. Obviously, it can be a little bit narrowing in terms of degree choices, but we have a history of all sorts of weird and wonderful students. Well, that's true, but all sorts of weird and wonderful destinations for some of our former students. We've got students who've done wonderful dissertations. I was recently speaking to one who studied flies in glacial ice, and whether we might be able to correlate that to climatic variations and understand climate change through that lens. So really kind of, as I say, weird and wonderful style approaches. So we've got that tectonics module there, which, as I say, you'll be familiar with from geography most likely. Interpreting the past, the fourth module, is about trying to understand how environments change through time. If I could have the next slide, you can see a bit more of the year 13 course. So here we basically just delve a bit deeper into all of the aspects we studied in year 12. I think geology is something that I'd call a multidisciplinary subject. We're great stealers, borrowers of ideas. So when it comes to something like understanding igneous rock, we might borrow some of the ideas about atomic arrangement and the chemistry of magma chambers from the chemists. When it comes to understanding the fossil record, as we do quite a large amount of in year 13, how have organisms developed from the dinosaurs and trilobites through to modern mammals, we borrow ideas from the biologists, and we nab a little bit of their understanding of how evolution works. Then when it comes to understanding the layers of the earth and what's going on in the interior structure of the earth, we might borrow ideas about the propagation of waves from physics. So we sort of nitpick, we take little bits out of other subjects, and we build it together into this really cohesive view to help us understand the history of the earth and the life and the climate that's been on it. It's also worth mentioning there that the sixth module there, geohazards, which is normally one of the ones that gets our students quite excited. We look at earthquakes, we look at whether we can predict earthquakes and volcanic activity. We also look at geotechnics, and that one's a really nice link with the engineering that I was talking about. So we talk about the strength and deformation of rocks, and then we apply that in engineering geology in respect to building dams, making tunnels, where we site landfill, all sorts of challenges that few people realise are the realm of geology, but very much the sort of thing that a geologist would be involved with. If I could get the next slide, please. So here you can see the results from the geology course. So as I say, we do have reasonably small sets. but we've got a fantastic history of getting those students really top results. We were incredibly thrilled last year. We got 4 A stars, and that was all of our students. So we were pretty chuffed with that one. There's a nod here to the BWS, the Geology Twitter. Dr. Smallwood is a prolific tweeter, and if you're thinking, well, I'm still not quite sure what geology is, I really do recommend taking a look at the Twitter there at BWS Geology, because what we do is we put out lots of links to fascinating articles, and you can get a real sense for what the subject involves by looking at that. Down at the bottom right, I've got some samples of exam questions. So quite often I get the question, is geology an essay subject? The firm answer to that is no. It's examined in exactly the same way as the other sciences are. So it's mostly made of 1 to 6 mark questions, 6 marks being the longest answers. There's lots of diagrammatic work. 20% of the course is maths. So it's important that you realise that before you broach it. But there's lots of working with diagrams, lots of understanding processes. It's quite similar in many respects to a science lesson in that way. Yeah, I've got a little bit there at the end about what can you do with a career in geology. And I think one of the things that's always worth saying is there just aren't enough geologists around. I can say that comfortably, but there most certainly are not enough geologists around. It's on the national skills shortage, geotechnics, oceanography, all sorts of different branches of geology. And we have former students working as exploration geologists, so that would be mineral and resource exploration, geochemists, paleontologists, hydrogeologists. We even have one who's he's called an experimental petrologist, who's doing work on what the assemblages and mineralogy might look like on Mars using the data that we get back from the Curiosity rover. So there's a huge diversity of different careers which are possible, but a huge number of them are very practical and very much the sorts of skills that we require. So I hope it's an option that some people feel that they might be interested in. Very welcome to message me. My email's on the PowerPoint somewhere, and will be available afterwards. And send some questions out if you'd like to, if you'd like to explore that option. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Thorne. So we're going to leave the science department to rest for the evening and move on to mathematics. Welcome, Mrs. Barrett. And you're going to talk to us about mathematics A-level, further mathematics A-level, and choosing core mathematics as a 4th option alongside 3 A-levels, I hope, please.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. So I've got 3 things to cover with you this evening. It's the 3 options that are provided by Bishops for you to continue developing your mathematical education post GCSE, which for a number of reasons is a very important thing to do. So if I kick off first of all with A-level maths. Now the first thing to say about it is it's a really very highly regarded A-level by both universities and employers alike. The reason being to get a decent grade at A-level maths demonstrates your ability to think logically, to problem solve, and to analyse lots of different things. And those skills are very transferable across lots of different employment areas and also across lots of different subjects. It goes hand in hand as well with so many other of our A-levels that we offer here at Bishops. When you start maybe thinking about degree courses that you might want to apply for, engineering, you have to have an A-level in maths to do engineering. Interestingly, economics and computer science, if you go to the top universities and have a look on their websites, often they don't ask you for an A-level in economics or an A-level in computer science. What they want is a really strong A-level grade in maths, because those skills are exactly what they want for you to pursue those courses. The sciences as well, it goes hand in hand with those. And I think the number of students that we have studying A-level maths really does demonstrate how well it combines with the other A-levels that are on offer too. This year, our biggest cohort of all time, 112 students studying A-level maths, so that's just in year 12, split into 6 teaching groups. So, you know, we've got a large number of students. That makes for good discussions in classes, good element of team working and that sort of thing going on in lessons too. Results are, oh, that should say 2022 there, sorry, that's my typing there. So our results for this summer just gone, which bearing in mind that was when our students actually sat the A-levels, we got 80% grade A star to B. I did look up actually because sciences were quoting their AA star, so AA star was 70%. But I think one of the real highlights to mention is that half of our students got an A star grade. Now, what you'll find is if you start looking at universities, start looking at the kind of offers that they will give you to study a lot of courses, quite often a lot of the top universities you're looking maybe A star AA. So what we found with our students is the A star that they can get in their A-level maths will then quite often secure them their place at their top university. Now we study, just final thing on this page, we study Edexcel exam board. Now why we decided to choose them is that they are the largest cohort of students studying A-level maths. So I was looking up details of that. So there's 60,000 students took A-level maths last year with Edexcel out of 90,000 across the country. So it shows you that, you know, pretty much 2/3 take Edexcel. Interesting enough, just to quote our statistics in context there, because I do like a number or two, across the whole cohort 22% got A star. And obviously our cohort 50% got A star. So I think that's testimony really to how well our students did do. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the entry criteria for A-level maths. You would have seen on the website and in the sixth form prospectus as well. The minimum to be able to study A-level maths is a grade 7 at GCSE. Now I have put on here that if you're interested in studying A-level maths, really try and work hard between now and next summer to try and achieve that grade 8. Now the reason I say that is because our A-level course, the initial topics that it kicks off with are really those grade 8 level topics. So if you're good at those already, you'll hit the ground running. If you do get a grade 7, that does mean we'll still accept you onto the course, but what you might find is you need to do just a little bit of extra work at the start just to sort of get yourself up to that level where you are going to be sailing through all of the work that we set. Now I'm going to talk a little bit later about a different option to A-level maths. My sort of personal opinion is, you know, if you're interested in doing A-level maths and you're good enough to do A-level maths and your other subjects that you're choosing are sciences or subjects that have any sort of data analysis in, so psychology, geology, any of even like geography, anything like that, then, you know, if you're good enough, you should see if you can find a slot for A-level maths within your A-level choices. If you think maybe you might struggle with A-level maths, or you don't particularly want to choose it, you perhaps want to do 3 other A-levels, then I'll talk a little bit later about what the alternative is to make sure that you can still support some of your other subjects, especially on some of the data analysis side. So a little bit later I'll talk a bit more about core maths. So we have a look just really at the kind of topics that are covered in the year 12 course. It's split into pure, which is 2/3 of the course, and then statistics and mechanics, which is 1/3 of the course. So if we look at some of the pure topics, you probably sat there at home looking at that and thinking, I recognise quite a lot of those. Yes, we do build on a lot of the GCSE content, so a lot of those you'll be very familiar with. If we then have a look at the sort of what's on the stats and the mechanics side, so again, the statistics, you probably think about probability. We've done that at GCSE, representing data, that's all your different graphs and everything. We do go on into a bit more statistics to do with hypothesis testing, which is a new topic to the A-level. And then if I look at the mechanics side of the course, SUVAT equations, again, I know you do at GCSE, forces and motion, and variable accelerator. So we take those and we just sort of build on them more at A-level maths. So that's why we do ask for that minimum grade 7, because you do need to have a good building blocks of maths skills and ability to be able to build on those and to go further in the A-level. So the exams that you will take at the end of year 13, you'll take 3 2-hour papers. You get 2 pure papers, hence why it's 2/3, and 1 combined stats and mechanics paper, and they are linear. It's a linear course, so they will examine you on the content studied over the 2 years. Just to say, you will get 2 maths teachers who will take your lessons. You'll get 2 1-hour lessons a week from each teacher, and they sort of split half the course each. So one of them will teach half of the pure and statistics, and one of them will teach half of the pure and the mechanics side of it. So you get the opportunity to have a couple of different teachers there, which is quite nice as well. Okay. Let's go on to further maths then. Now, further maths, you know, you might sort of think, oh, well, that's, you know, just more maths, but I'll go on and tell you a little bit about sort of what it does contain. It's only available as a 4th A-level choice. Okay, so you can't do maths, further maths and just one other. So it is really for our very good mathematicians. That's a really good point to note, is only do further maths if you really enjoy maths, because if 2 of your 4 A-levels are maths and further maths, then you'll be doing half your week doing maths, which is, you know, I spend all my week doing maths, but I'm fine with that. So just make sure that you do enjoy your maths. Smaller cohort for doing further maths, because I think it is, you know, it is a more challenging A-level. So this year we've got 28 students split into 2 teaching groups. But if you just take a moment to have a look at the results that we get for that again should say 2022. Our A star to B, apart from geology actually, but they only had 4 students, is 96%, so one of the highest in the schools. And again, 50% of those getting the top A star grade. So really good, you know, ability to secure those high grades, which universities are looking for, those high grades, the top universities anyway, for you to gain access to their courses. Entry criteria, then we do ask for a grade 8 in GCSE maths because it is more challenging maths. It is seen very much so by universities and by employers as well as a tricky A-level. I mean, if you think A-level maths is, you know, on par with all of the sciences as far as difficulty wise, further maths is a notch up from that. Okay, so you have to enjoy your maths and be willing to persevere with it as well. But if you are interested, or you're sort of thinking about doing it, I'd say if you're thinking about what degree you might want to go on and do, go and have a look at the university websites, see if they ask for further maths. They often do ask for it for engineering. They often ask for it for physics. And obviously if you're going to do a maths degree, they're asked for it there. So just go and have a look and see if they want to do you to do the further maths to gain access onto that course. But if we have a look at some of the topics that we cover, unlike your A-level maths, if I put some of those topics up, you probably haven't heard of many of those. So this is really what I'd say when the maths gets interesting. It is very new topics, new ideas, new concepts, and it really pushes the boundaries of your mathematical ability and your mathematical knowledge, and it is really interesting stuff. So we do sort of pure, and then we do mechanics side of the course as well, which takes some more interesting, you know, situations to do with work, energy, power, elastic collisions, so things colliding with each other, and modelling all of those mathematically. So it is different to your normal A-level maths, but it definitely supports you with your A-level maths. So you do find people that are doing further maths as well, because they get a lot more maths practice during the week. It does help them to go on and get that better grade at the A-level maths as well. Again, you have 2 teachers for your further maths, so you'll have one that does some of the pure and the mechanics, and then you have one that does the rest of the pure and some of the further pure, which is the additional module that we cover. Quickly about examinations, you have 4 1.5-hour papers. So you get 2 pure, 1 further mechanics and 1 further pure, same as the maths course and same as all of our A-level courses. They're linear courses, so that covers the whole 2-year course. One thing to note, further maths is one of the A-levels where an AS in further maths is still valued as a qualification itself. So we do have some students at the end of year 12 that decide to sit the AS exam, get their AS grade, which then they can put on their UCAS application. Typically it might be somebody who's deciding to go and do medicine, wants to free up a bit of time by not doing a 4th A-level, so that they can go and do their volunteering and all that sort of stuff. So they might just take their AS level. We also get some students who decide to pick up AS further maths in year 13 when they discover that the course they want to apply to at university needs you to have some further maths. So we do also offer that option as well for people. Yeah, so on to my final thing I need to talk about, which is core maths, which is one of those things that some people haven't really heard much about core maths and don't know what it's all about. Now, it's chosen as an add-on to your 3 A-levels as an alternative to EPQ. So if you're doing 3 A-levels, then you will do 3 A-levels and something else. Now, if one of your A-levels is A-level maths, you have to do an EPQ. Okay, if you're not doing A-level maths, because you either don't want to as one of your A-levels, or maybe you don't meet the entrance criteria for it, then you should really seriously think about doing core maths. There's no entry criteria and entry grade requirements for it, so it's just the minimum. You need a grade 5 to get into Bishops. But it's different to the EPQ in that, although it's studied over 1 year, which is exactly the same as the EPQ, its structure is quite different. It's more like studying an AS level, or more like studying an exam subject, because you get 2 1-hour lessons a week with 1 teacher. They will teach you the whole course. They will give you, lessons. They will give you homework. They will give you assessments, and then at the end of year 12, you will sit the exams. There's 2 exams for core maths, and that's how you'll get your core maths qualification. Okay, so it's different in structure to EPQ, so that's something for you to kind of have a think about, really, of whether you want to do an EPQ, which is very much you studying something independently, or whether you want a bit more structure behind your additional qualification you're going to get. We've got 36 students this year, split into 2 teaching groups. We again get good results from this. That should be 2022 again. So we had 33 people studying it last year, and 25 got a grade A. Now, core maths was introduced, I don't know, we started doing it in 2018. And I think it was introduced a couple of years before that, and it was introduced really to fill a bit of a gap, because people were finding that if they did maths, well, they all do maths at GCSE, if you didn't want to, or you weren't maybe of the required standard to go on and do A-level maths, then that's the end of your maths education and your maths learning. So they introduced core maths to really sit between GCSE and A-level. It's the same, it has the same number of UCAS points as an AS qualification. And what it enables you to do is to carry on your mathematical learning throughout year 12 as well. So it really does help all of those courses that have some maths content in them. So if I show you the kind of thing, the kind of courses that have, so we go on to the bottom bit as well. So these are the courses that all have some A-level, some kind of statistical analysis in it. So, your sciences, they might be obvious. Economics is very mathematical heavy, and business studies, and geography. If you think they all might do some research, they might gather some data, and then they need to analyse it. Psychology as well, Miss Mesnar said, that's 10% maths in psychology. So for you to be able to analyse the results of any research that you've done in psychology, you need to be able to analyse the data. And if I show you the kinds of what the course content contains, so we just go on to the next slide for that. So these are the kinds of things that it covers. So analysis of data, that's going to be all your graphs and your charts and all of that sort of stuff. Critical analysis is an interesting one because that is actually taking another person's analysis of data and basically picking it apart. So looking at it and saying, oh, well, they didn't mention about that, or they're twisting the statistics a little bit of that. So that's a really interesting one because you can then go and read the newspaper and see just how they are twisting some of the data and some of the facts with some of the things that they present in there. Maths for personal finance people find really interesting because that's all about student loans, how they work, about tax, about national insurance, about maybe taking out a loan, interest rate, all of that sort of thing. So it's a real useful skill for you then to take sort of, you know, post school. Graphing, that comes up in science and all of that. And then Fermi estimation, that's quite interesting. That's being able to come up with an estimate for how many dentists does the city of Bristol need, for example, based on your sort of like summary of kind of how many people there are, how often they go, all of that sort of stuff. So final thing for me to finish off with then, I sort of said that, you know, I'm a real advocate of you continuing studying maths after GCSE. Really, that's because not only does it support all of your other A levels, but the actual skills that you develop by continuing your logical thinking, your problem solving, your reasoning, all of that sort of thing are very employable skills. You know, those are the kinds of things that employers are looking for. So that's really why, okay, if you want to choose A-level maths, further maths, brilliant. But if you don't choose either of those, then I'd say really have a good think about whether core maths might go hand in hand with your other A levels to sort of just help support the mathematics in those. Okay, so that's kind of all from me. My website, my email address is on the bottom of this slide here. So if you do want to get in touch with any questions, then please do. Also have a look at the website. There's a lot of information as well about our A-level courses and that on there. So do have a look at that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mrs. Barrett. We've had a question come in, and I wonder if you could just take a minute to answer it. Half of it you did mention, but you might like to reiterate, please. So how often is A-level further maths taken as a fourth A-level, and is it possible to take further maths at a third A-level?
Yeah, that's a good question. We really I think, you know, that comes from yourself as well, being sort of careers advisor. We really don't sort of recommend that you just do 3 A levels, maths, further maths and one other, just because it is really quite narrow, and it's really sort of narrowing your choices. So it's not really recommended. We did have a student one year who decided to drop. He definitely wanted to go and do maths at university. And he decided to drop his 4th A level and just did maths, further maths and one other. So he took that at AS. So I guess, you know, occasionally it does happen, but I think we want you to have your sort of breadth of your A levels really. So to take it as a 4th A level is going to be the best option for you. And I mean, it's with the numbers, we have a lot of people doing A level maths, but a lot fewer. So we've got 6 classes in year 12 for A-level maths, 2 classes in year 12 for A-level further maths. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea that it's about a third, yeah, about sort of a third, a little bit less than a third, maybe a quarter, something like that.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. And I totally agree about the rationale for doing further maths as a 4th rather than a 3rd. It's much too narrow. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
And now we are going to move over to a very different sort of science, which is physical education. I'd like to say good evening, Mr. Oldham.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Can you tell us a bit about PE, please?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll just work on to the first slide. So A-level PE at Bishop Wordsworth currently has 19 students in year 13, 14 in year 12. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview as to the content. We split it into 3 classes. So I'll start with a simple overview of the course on the next slide. Okay, so the heaviest weighted part of our course is the physiological factors, which is maybe the most expected part of the main course of physical education itself. The paper is worth 90 marks. It's a 2-hour paper and it's worth 30% of the overall grade. The second part is the psychological factors that affect performance. It's a 1-hour paper, it's worth 20%. And the third part is the socio-cultural part and the history of sport. It's also worth 60 marks. It's also a 1-hour paper and it's 20%. So there are 3 separate papers and there's quite a lot of depth almost away from the basic physiological parts, the physical education, if you like, mainly with the psychological and the socio-cultural and the history of sport. However, there are 2 coursework-based elements or non-examined elements, one of which is the practical, which again you'd perhaps expect at physical education. This is worth 30 marks, it's 15% of the overall course, and the EPI, which is an evaluation and analysis of performance for improvement, which is also worth 30 marks. So these last 2 kind of lead us into a bit of the recommendations as to what we would want if you were signing up for A-level PE, the sort of experience you'd need and a physical background. It's one sport that you're assessed in. So if you're a rugby player, you're a football player, if you're a games player, you might have a choice of sports, but ultimately you need to pick your strongest practical background. We have a really good range of athletes at the moment in the 2 classes, the Year 13. We've got a couple of equestrian athletes, a few swimmers, a couple of rugby players from school. And the evaluation and analysis of performance is also tied into that quite closely, which I'll come to on one of the latter slides, if we can move on to that next one. So the physiological factors that affect performance, students get a bit of an understanding of key systems in the body, how they react to changes in diet and exercise, and the study of force and motion on the body, so biomechanics. The 3 chapters or the 3 subtopics that this is split into are listed here. So applied anatomy and physiology, exercise physiology, and biomechanics. Now there's a lot of good crossover from biology, from the sciences at GCSE in this particular aspect, and there's also quite good and straightforward crossover from the GCSE PE if that's a subject that you've studied as well. Like I said, this is the heaviest weighted section of our subject, and therefore it's actually the heaviest weighted in terms of your timetabling as well. I'll come to that as well in terms of the split. Next slide. So the psychological factors, this is new mainly from the GCSE part, if that's something you've studied. And if you don't do the GCSE PE, but you're looking to study A-level PE, it's a really interesting, really new, exciting part of the syllabus that we look at. It's also quite current in terms of a lot of the theories we discuss and we look at surrounding mental health and mental well-being. So the students look at the models and theories that affect learning and performance in physical activities. So it's also to do with skill acquisition, how fundamentally we pick up our basic motor skills and we develop them towards a more elite level of performance. And then the psychology of performance also links into things like leadership, group dynamics, and stress management as a result as well. Socio-cultural issues and history of sport is the final section of the examined paper. This looks at the social cultural issues that have shaped sport over time, the history of sport, so development of things like mob football, and its influence on current physical activity and current performance sport. Students consider the impact of hosting global sporting events, so they look back at the history of the Olympic Games, the impact on host nations and host cities, and also the influences of modern technology on the performers and spectators. Again, quite current affairs in terms of VAR currently in football. There's lots of arguments for that at the moment in the media. And it's split into the 2 sections as listed there. So sport and society, contemporary issues in physical activity and sport. So coming back to that original overview, the practical performance. Now, word for word, students are assessed in either the role of a performer or a coach. Now, we tend not to assess in the role of a coach. We haven't done at all. It's a lot more straightforward for our students to be assessed in the role of a performer, typically because their experience levels are much more significant, and the relative level of coaching that they may well have reached at this particular stage is not usually as high. So we tend not to advise the coaching role. You're required to demonstrate effective performance, the use of tactics and techniques, and the ability to observe the rules and conventions under applied conditions. It's a little bit wordy, but essentially it's being assessed in competitive scenarios and also then being assessed at a very basic level of their techniques within a certain sport, so just the one sport. That leads us on into the evaluation and analysis of performance. This is slightly more complicated, and again, a slightly newer process leading in from GCSE. And again, if they haven't studied at GCSE, then this will be completely new. Ultimately, they will watch, observe a performance of their peers, and they will be required to analyse it, pick out strengths and weaknesses, prioritise a weakness for improvement with a 10-week training programme, but also in terms of the analysis and observation, be able to apply content from the 3 aspects of our theoretical studies. So the physiological, the psychological, and the socio-cultural. The piece to camera needs to last no more than 30 minutes, which is potentially quite a long time, but if we're concise and if we're accurate in what we're identifying and what we're saying, 20 minutes there or thereabouts is a good estimate for that particular piece of work. That's assessed in centre, and it's something that we get a fair amount of practice at before we just launch straight into it in year 13. So the staffing and the lesson distribution, like I was saying, the heaviest weighted section gets 4 lessons a week. At the moment, that consists of 2 doubles rather than being split across into singles at any stage. That's Mr. Morton, who looks after that in year 12. I look after the psychological factors. That's 2 lessons per week, and it's given as a double rather than 2 separate singles. And the same for the socio-cultural factors with Mr. Domain Griffiths, our Director of Sport. Both myself and Mr. Domain Griffiths look after the practical assessment, the video footage collection and editing to put forward for assessment, and also the EPI, the evaluation analysis of performance for improvement. Both of those aspects in terms of the videoing ultimately get picked up in year 13. So we lead into it towards the end of year 12, and then we designate lessons from our particular subjects, given that there's less curriculum content, and Mr. Morton and the physiological factors carry on with their 4 sessions a week, specifically from the textbook, specifically within syllabus content. So that's the basics of how we split during a week. Prerequisites for the course. We ask that students are achieving a grade 7 at Science GCSE. Now, the most common thread or the most linkable process is the biology. There's an awful lot of positive transfer from the content there towards the physiology in particular. If you have done GCSE PE, that's fantastic. It's not something that we absolutely require. The socio-cultural and history of sport is not something that we touch upon an awful lot in the GCSE, neither is the skill acquisition and psychology. So those 2 aspects of the course are pretty much new to the majority of the students who sign up for A-level PE anyway. You also need to provide a history of ongoing participation. If you're staying from BWS, then in first team level in chosen sports, so whether that's the rugby, the football, your tennis, athletics, whatever it might be, or if you're joining us for sixth form, then we would need to have a discussion around current and regular participation within your chosen sport at a regional or county standard, which is essentially the competitive standard that Bishops performs at either at weekend block fixtures or throughout their competitions that we enter on weekdays. So yeah, that's ultimately based on the level of performance that we require for your practical. Just playing the odd bit of club football, for example, here and there, isn't going to put you in a satisfactory grade boundary, and it will also hinder your performance on your ability to observe, evaluate, analyse at a particularly high level as well. So they're the things that we ask for joining in on the A-level course. A couple of pictures. So one of the key questions that we get asked is how much practical is there, based on the fact that we have a practical section to A-level. The answer is none by definition within our timetable. However, As you can see from the 3 pictures there, we do try and tie in a fair amount of different classroom atmospheres, whether that's out on the AstroTurf with Mr. DG looking at the uppers and the downers mob football, and learning it through doing it rather than just sitting with a textbook or churning out your notes. We've managed to have a bit of competitive Jenga in terms of stress and audience participation, proximity of audience, and the impact of that on performance. That's a central picture. And we do try and tie in a few seasonal bits and pieces as well. So we've got a bit of festivity in with the PE nativity. So the groups, like I said, we have 19 at the moment in year 13, 14 in year 12, with a really good mix of sports, a really outgoing atmosphere within the class. Not everybody's a team athlete, but the inevitability of competition within sport sort of lends itself quite nicely and fosters itself within our classrooms, and it's certainly something that we try and encourage in terms of learning new content. In terms of subject links, biology, if you were to choose biology for the A-level and push on with that, there's a really positive transfer in terms of the curriculum content. And the other one that we're often seeing at the moment is psychology. So given that there's a specific element to our curriculum, which is the psychology of sport, it's a really good tie over to the psychology A-level as well. So often we're seeing biology, psychology and PE as a really strong combination for your A-levels. It gives really good breadth across the really specific science and the biomechanics, but then also comes away, like I articulated earlier, in terms of the mental well-being, and developing a bit of a broader picture of oneself with the ability to evaluate and analyse performance and recognise the impact of lifestyle choices. And that's something which, again, with a bit of bias towards our subject, certainly lends much further into later life and the person as a whole, rather than just an A-level study. So that is, yeah, A-level PE. Okay, thank you very much. I'm rather intrigued by the PE nativity. Looks quite interesting. Does a student have to be involved in team sport, or is it possible to do the A-level successfully through individual sport? Either or. So if they're involved in team sport within school, it's a lot easier for us to manage the footage and collection of video editing material for them. It's also a little bit more straightforward for us to get a good grasp on the grade boundaries that we're putting in for the practical assessment. However, for example, we've got a couple of swimmers at the moment who actually run by times in terms of the boundaries and the bandings that we put them in. It's ultimately then up to the student to work and to gain the footage that we want to put forward for assessment. So it perhaps puts a little bit more onus on the student and a bit more responsibility. But we've also got a couple of regional level hockey players. There are certain sports that we just don't offer at school, which is just a fact. So it really doesn't matter either one way or the other. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you very much indeed. No worries, thank you. So we're now going to talk about what we always refer to as the EPQ, stands for the Extended Project Qualification, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Brundle, who is going to tell us all about that. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you all hear and see me, first of all? Excellent. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Brundle, and I'm the Extended Project Qualification Lead at Bishop's School. I'll be aiming tonight to give you insight into the qualification and I think to explain its benefits. So, what is an EPQ? Well, in many respects, it is a departure from the GCSEs. It's something different to what you will have studied previously. I think what's key about that is its self-guided nature. So it's quite different to GCSEs in that your teacher becomes a supervisor, takes on more of a mentoring role. It's a valid qualification, it's level 3, which you'll be doing alongside your A-level choices. And I think the other difference to GCSEs, and indeed to some of the A-levels perhaps, is the form that it can take, and that is really up to the participating student. It can take the form of a dissertation, of a field study, a performance even, or an artefact. I would say at the moment the majority of our students aim either for a dissertation of 5,000 words or an artefact, so producing some sort of product and a 1,000-word report. Well, that's not to say the other two that are included there should not be considered. Next slide, please. So there are many reasons to do an EPQ, and I will be talking about how they're valued by some higher education institutions later on. I think the key one, as far as I'm concerned as an educationalist, is the development of study skills, which will put you in really good position not only for your A-levels, but for further education and indeed into adult life. So it's developing those skills to go to the heart of the qualification, which gives it the value that we see in universities and employers around the country and elsewhere. Importantly, also, it could add that value to your personal statement that just gives you that critical advantage over your competitors for an apprenticeship, a university course, or whatever. Next slide, please. So actually, just picking up a point from the previous slide, what I should have said to end that is that I think you need to manage your expectations when selecting this. So it is a rigorous qualification, especially as the self-guided nature to it, the autonomy, means that you will be deciding at various stages with our guidance what you're going to do next to progress this qualification. So I always take that into account. The rigor, I think, goes to the heart of this qualification. When choosing your topic, I think you need to be aware of what is possible and what is advisable. So the great thing about the EPQ is it gives you tremendous independence in terms of selecting what you want to focus on. And this can be really useful for students because it gives them the opportunity to produce something really tailored, really personalised, that fits precisely with their ambitions, with what they want to do at university. So it's very, very open-ended in terms of what you can research. However, I think underpinning this, you should be aware of the following. The most successful EPQ projects and students are those who have been evaluative throughout. So you should make sure that your focus is something that you can evaluate and consider. Throughout the qualification, you will be guided, you will be advised stuff by your supervisor, your teacher, and I advise you that as you go through the topic, it's really important at all the various stages to try and respond fully to your supervisor's comments. In doing so, you'll be able to get the higher mark, which I will be explaining in due course. And I think also, and this is quite different to other subjects, it's the preparedness to change what you're doing, to modify what you're doing. In order to meet your objectives as you progress through the qualification and the project. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of assessing the EPQ, you will be graded A star to E. In that respect, it's very similar to other subjects. And the assessment of your project will be undertaken by your supervisor. I'm going to talk briefly now in terms of the 4 areas in which the extended project qualification is assessed. There are 4 areas: the management of the EPQ project, the use of resources, how the project has been developed and realised through its conception through to the end, and a review of the EPQ project. So I will talk about these briefly now. So in terms of managing the EPQ project, what we're looking for here is, has the student been able to identify the topic and how precisely? Have they constructed plausible, achievable aims and objectives towards meeting those aims? We would be looking also at assessing the detail of the project plan here, and also the extent to which the student is using skills and strategies to meet the objectives that they are setting. In terms of the resources, it's vital, I think, with the EPQ that you are prepared to access a range of resources, but to go further than that. So this is the bit where you're honing your analytical skills, your ability to evaluate the credibility, the reliability of the various resources, to take any data or information that you might be getting it and to apply it in an appropriate way, together with theories, concepts and arguments, towards meeting the aim of your project. AO3 is a really chunky part of the qualification. It's here that we'll be assessing to what extent you've applied problem solving, you've applied decision making, perhaps even creative thinking with regards to the outcomes that you have planned throughout this journey. Finally, AO4 looks at your communication skills, which I think are really vital to this. You'll be presenting at the end of this, for example. We'll be looking also to what extent you've effectively communicated the outcomes, the conclusion, to what extent you've been able to convey to us a evaluation of the project, an evaluation of the learning, and indeed of your own performance throughout. Next slide, please. So I did say earlier that it's highly valued by universities, and that's certainly the case. I would say the EPQ it shuts no doors and is opening an increasing number, especially at those higher performing universities and the more desirable courses. So I've got a couple of testimonials here from universities our students are aiming and have aimed to get into. I think what's relevant, if we look at the testimony from Oxford here, is the fact that this university is seeing the EPQ as something of relevance for all studies. So it's something which you should be considering, really regardless of what your academic ambitions may or may not be. Next slide, please. Again, University of Bristol, highly popular destination for many students at Bishops, and I think what's encouraging here is that we're seeing some top universities actually use the EPQ to give alternative offers to students, and offers which some students may well see as perhaps a slightly easier route into that journey. Next slide, please. And I think this is also really, really important, is that I think the EPQ is a vital tool these days for access to those top courses, for access into that sort of higher level of education. And I think by this, what I mean is that by doing the EPQ, you may well be showing university admissions people that you've just got that little bit extra, that maybe some highly qualified and highly competent people who are also trying to get a place on that course maybe hasn't done. So it could give you that real advantage. And I think for many people, including students at Bishop, it is a gateway into courses and to institutions which they might not have considered prior to doing this. Next slide, please. Finally, from Cambridge, I think this is quite a useful thing, which I think a lot of students haven't considered, is that it is seen, I think, as if not a second chance and another chance to demonstrate to people the skills that you have, the skills that you've developed. And I think it's particularly interesting. We look at the quote here. This is a way perhaps of addressing with some shortcomings in your GCSEs, perhaps. So really encouraging that some really, really high-performing universities are very, very interested in students doing the EPQ. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to leave you with a visual image, which is this basically, and I think really it sort of describes, I think, young people these days. I think they've got lots going for them, but it's about standing out. I do believe there will be opportunities in a post-Brexit world and in a post-energy crisis world, but they might well be that little bit harder to get. So I think alongside your A-levels, it's a really, really important thing to consider the EPQ. But I think my key message tonight is if you want to stand out and have that critical advantage over other people, it's definitely something you should consider doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I've seen some very interesting EPQ projects, and it really astonishes me what students actually decide upon to do their projects with, from the artifact to the dissertation to the performance to scientific experiments. Could you possibly give us a few examples of interesting projects that you've seen, Matt?
I've been looking at quite a few recently. I think before I answer that question in detail, I think it's really interesting because unlike other subjects, this is a subject in where you can absolutely grasp something that is of real interest, of real passion to you and run with it. I think that's where the exciting element of the projects comes through. In terms of interesting projects, I've had quite a few recently. A very successful one last year was this, can I build a model car? Very, very straightforward question, but allowing the student plenty of opportunities to evaluate that process, to use a variety of sources, for example. I'm looking at the moment, it's very initial stages, but we have a Year 12 student who is very, very keen to enter into the legal profession and is therefore doing a legal-based dissertation looking at legislation for shoplifting. So I've had a lengthy conversation about shoplifting today. So it really can go anywhere. It can go artifact way in terms of making, producing something. It can go into an academic area. But I think what's exciting, no matter which way the student goes, is two things. You're really seeing the students' interest come out into their work, and also you're seeing the student begin to work much more like an adult learner, to actually have that autonomy, to take our guidance, to respond to it, sure, but to actually run with their own ideas. As an educationalist, that's very exciting.
Yes, I mean, I completely agree with you. Having seen some that completely underpin what we've been talking about this evening from, I had a student who did a wonderful experiment. He wanted to be a doctor. And yes. He did a project where he developed some software to measure his heart rate and then proceeded to eat different strengths of chilies and measure his heart rate in response to the different strengths, which is quite an interesting one.
The EPQ chili eating competition will not be running this year to rival the PE nativity. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Absolutely,
but actually,
the risk
think about the
assessment
example you've given. You know, he's got a huge amount of skills coming out of that. He's had to develop his knowledge of software, presumably of food technology, potentially, of what it means to make an experiment, to evaluate it. And I'm just thinking, with regards to that student, how interesting would they be at a university interview if they were asked a question about an EPQ?
Yes, I've had a few students who've the EPQ has been absolutely central to their university interview, and of course you've got such a wealth of material to talk about it when you've done that in-depth research into a particular topic.
You're right, and I think because it's essentially autonomous and self-guided, you really do know what you're talking about if you get to the stage of being asked to share that. And certainly we would see that in the presentations. We've seen some fantastic presentations in the last few years. So yeah, I completely agree with that comment.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Brundle. One of the best EPQs we had was a translation from Shakespeare into Spanish. And that leads me very nicely into the head of languages, please, Mr. Green, and Mrs. Drummond to speak about German. And so I'm going to hand over to you, Mr. Green, to start to talk about French and Spanish, please.
Yeah, hi, it's just me tonight. Mrs. Drummond's not well,
okay.
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just me. Sorry if everyone was hanging on just to see Mrs. Drummond, but no, it's me. Yeah, good, nice segue that. So
thank you.
Very good. Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to talk about the languages A levels. I'm head of MFL, as Mrs. Armstrong said. I also teach the French A level and the Spanish A level, so I give quite a good introduction to the course, how it's examined, and then I'll take any Q&A towards the end. So when you come in to do a languages A level in year 12, we're really realistic about the level that we're going to get. So a concern sometimes is this going to be too big a step up from GCSE? And the answer is, like to start with, not at all. Okay, we almost take your GCSE level, step it back a bit, go through some real basic grammar, work on your confidence in communication, your confidence in being able to get pen to paper. We're aware that you had a big gap between finishing your GCSEs and starting the A level. So it's a really, really smooth and straightforward transition. I think all the current year 12s would agree that that's the case. In terms of the topics, the A level is just far more interesting than the GCSE. So at GCSE, if you think you're talking constantly about yourself, your holidays, your family, and your school life, things like that. It's all about yourself. When you get to A level, you're looking at more sort of social, cultural, and political topics. So sort of the depth of your opinions is tested. You're supposed to have opinions on kind of areas of politics and culture. You learn sort of factual things. You go and do wider reading to back up your opinions and things like that. So think about the current French A-level course. We're looking at La Cybersociété at the moment, so the influence of technology on our lives and the use of the mobile phone and apps and how they are having positive and negative effects in life. In Spanish, we're currently looking at the role of the family and the changing kind of value of the Catholic Church in Spanish family life, and what that means in terms of impact of population, in terms of in terms of sort of views towards family itself. And yeah, we sort of developed that to look at things like heritage in France and things that make France a tourist destination, and we kind of look into just way more interesting topics than in the GCSE. Then halfway through at year 12, we'll move on to film and book study. So for each of the languages, you will study a film. So for French, it is La Haine, which is kind of a gritty 1990s film about Parisian city centre life. In Spanish, we look at a film called Ocho Apellidos Vascos, which is a jaunty rom-com that looks at culture shock between the north and south of Spain. And in German, I'm not a German speaker yet. I'm working on it. They do a film called The Lives of Others. To be honest, I'm not even sure what that one's about. So I have to ask Mrs. Drummond. And then in German, they do a play called Andorra. In French, they do a book called L'Étranger. And in Spanish, we do a book called Como Agua para Chocolate. And we study those like we study in English literature. So we look at character, we look at theme, we look at history, context. And I'll come to the assessments in a bit, but we all examined on your ability to write essays on films and books. I think that pretty much covers the course. So I'll go on to the exam a little bit. So obviously the exam's at the end of year 13, and there are 3 exams that make up a languages A-level. First of all, we have a listening, reading and writing paper. The writing section of that's mainly translation, and that's worth 50% of the overall grade. And it's about a 2.5-hour paper. So that's your big paper is the listening, reading and translation. That's all based on the topics that you've covered throughout the 2 years of the course. So all the work you do on grammar, all the work you do on vocabulary, on being able to read, get meaning out of it, answer in the target language, all those skills come together in that paper. We then have a writing paper, which is worth 20%, and that's a 2-hour paper, which is made up of 2 essays, 1 essay on the film and 1 essay on the book, as I've already mentioned. And then we have the speaking exam, which is about 21 to 25-minute exam. That's worth 30% of the overall grade. And that's made up of discussion on a theme. So you get a picture or some statistics and you talk about those, and they're very much theme related. So they're the topics that we've done throughout the 2 years of the course. And then we have a thing called the independent research project, and it's quite good that we've been put in here tonight straight after the EPQ, because the independent research project's really similar to an EPQ in a way. You go and research an aspect of French, German or Spanish culture or life or history. Can be something really quite specific, and your job is then to become an expert on it in your field. So you go and do some further reading, you look at multimedia and become an expert, so that in the exam you present your project essentially to your examiner and answer questions on it to kind of teach your examiner about your topic of choice. And that's worth 30%. So that's how it's all examined. Think about our grades. Last year we got 100%. Grade A started B in German and French, and 83% in Spanish, which results we're really, really pleased with. I'm trying to think what else I quite often get asked. Class sizes wise, our class sizes range from, I'd say, 5 to as many as 12, which might sound quite modest, especially on a science night when they've got about 3,000 in each class, I think. But yeah, languages are nice small classes that are good. It means we can get to see your strengths and weaknesses really, really quickly. We can work on them quite independently and almost have a bespoke package really in terms of knowing where you are, what you need to work on, keep a grammar audit, work on those things together. We can keep a really close eye on your individual progress. So it also gives you lots of chance to speak within lessons as well. I think my final thing I'd say is we have at the moment a team of volunteers who work with us in terms of spoken language. So as well as your class time doing MFL and your supervised study, you would also have a half-an-hour slot once a week with one of our foreign language speaking volunteers to work on your spoken skills. I think that's my speech.
Okay, thank you very much. Could you talk a little bit about whether students take multiple languages and other subjects that fit well with languages?
Yeah, so I think languages fit in well with anything really. I think obviously, as I mentioned, it goes well with English literature because the style of essay is very similar. Goes in well with history and politics. But politics, I think, it marries quite nicely because we've got political topics throughout the A level. But in terms of doing more than one language, yeah, we've got in current year 12, I think we've got 2 pupils that do 2 languages. We've got 2 that do French and German, and then in year 13 we've got a triple linguist. It's the only triple linguist I've ever known. Our sort of VIP, yeah, she's doing all 3.
Yes, she's just applied to Cambridge to do modern languages there as well.
Yeah, amazing.
And I think also we have some students who opt to take languages outside school, don't we? You know, languages that they want to learn in their own time, which I think is really encouraging. Yeah,
definitely. So we hosted, for example, Russian last year. We had a boy went off to do Russian GCSE at I did his speaking exam sort of elsewhere, but I drove him there, and we could sort of host the exams on site as well. Yeah, and I think a Russian A level as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's always good to see the many languages being taken. We've also got Mandarin running, obviously, but that's kind of a continuation to GCSE rather than to A level such.
Yeah. How does the class get split up? Is everybody doing the same thing at the same time, or do some people come out to do speaking practice? How does it work?
Yeah, so speaking practice happens, it tends to be taken out of free periods or out of supervised study. So yeah, we bring the class together so that they'll stay together as a unit. Yeah. In terms of are they all working on the same thing? Yeah, they are, but it might be the case that if we're looking at let's think about it. So talking earlier about la cybersociété, so the advantages, disadvantages of having mobile phones in classrooms and things. It might be that we split the class to be for and against and host debates and things like that. Like I said about the grammar, we're always very aware of who's where in terms of grammar and what X needs to work on, what Y needs to work on, etc. But yeah, we bring the class together sort of in terms of getting through the curriculum for sure.
Brilliant. Okay. And would you be able to talk a little bit about languages further on? So obviously we offer German, Spanish and French. Does that mean a student has to go on to study one of those languages at university?
No, so you've always got the option at university of starting a language from scratch. So thinking about back to my university days, there's quite a few people in my Spanish course who were doing it from scratch in amongst those that were doing it and been doing it for a long time. But just think about one of our students, yeah, so there's somebody who's got an offer to do French with Czech, for example, at the moment. So we're doing that from scratch. I think he's working on it already, to be fair, but it is a from scratch course. We had one boy who was here, I think 3 years ago, who's just about to start his year abroad in Sao Paulo. So he did Portuguese from scratch. He's doing his year abroad in Brazil. So yeah, there's lots of options to take a language up there if you're already doing a language. I think you can possibly do a language from scratch alongside other subjects as well. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my most favourite moments at Bishop's actually was a student who went off to Oxford to do Spanish and Russian, and he came back and recited this really, really long poem in Russian. It was actually quite moving. It was absolutely beautiful. I think sort of moving forward, it's great to pick up languages at university just on the side, isn't it? You can do that at most universities.
I think so, yeah, and like I said, it can complement a number of courses. So we had people doing, I think, like politics and Spanish. I went to University of Sheffield. I'm trying to think of things that people are doing. There's definitely, I think, politics and Spanish, law and Spanish seem to be a reasonably popular thing. So yeah, no matter what your roots, I think there's always room for a language alongside it, for sure.
Absolutely, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
So we are going to move now to general questions. So if you've got any questions about how the sixth form runs, anything for Dr. Smallwood or Miss Lambard, you'd like to know about uniform or general entry requirements or how the structure of the application works, please do put them in the Q&A now and we will answer any questions that we've got. Miss Lambard, would you like to add anything in for this evening?
No, actually, I have to say I really enjoyed listening to all the subjects. I mean, obviously I know quite a bit about them working there, but I just thought it was really nice to hear from the subject specialists some of their stories and tales and how things work and the results and things like that. So I hope everybody else has found it a really, really enjoyable evening. I do urge anyone to come and visit the school if they're thinking about applying and are not already in Bishops. And even if you are already in Bishops, come and see the big open evening, because there's so much going on and there's so much of interest. And there'll be a big music thing going on and a big art thing going on, and all the societies and clubs will be there. So it's really very enjoyable evening. You can sign up for that online. And I also want to remind everyone to apply by the deadline. Our deadline this year is 6th of February. And we are in a very fortunate position that we have been oversubscribed the last couple of years, and so we haven't been able to make any late offers. So if you are interested in coming to Bishops for sixth form, regardless of whether you're already in Bishops or in another school, please apply by the deadline. Keep your options open. You can apply to as many schools as you want. Come visit us, go with your gut, and yeah, really sixth form's a time to really enjoy and embrace all the side of academic and the extracurricular on offer.
Yeah. We've had a question come in. So when you apply online, you initially choose your 3 A-levels, and then you choose the 4th option of the EPQ, Core Maths, AS Music or A-level Further Maths. But can students take 4 A-levels?
Yes, they can. At the moment, you select a reserve choice as well, although we don't really use that because we do our timetabling based on what you've already selected. So it's in case of very rare timetable clash where we're only running 1 class of each and they don't fit in the blocks. But that is, as I say, an extreme case. So you select your 3 options plus your extra plus a reserve. And then if you want to do a 4th, you have to achieve a 7.5 grade average. So that's a step up. And the reason for that is it is a heavy workload and we don't want to jeopardise your other A-levels. So on results day, you will get the option, if you've got a 7.5, to select that 4th A-level, providing there's space on the course. And we go from there. We also do encourage you to seek advice from yourself, Mrs. Armstrong, because as I say, it's a heavy workload. And whilst some students do amazingly well on the 4 A-levels, and we do get those amazing students who get 4 A stars, I wouldn't want any student to go to, say, 3 Bs when they could get 4 Bs when they could get 3 As. For university entry, it's not ideal.
Okay, thank you. So the 4th A-level comes into play on results day, depending on their GCSE results, and that's when we sort it all out in the August.
Exactly so, and we can offer advice on results day and also in your first couple of weeks of term on what you're doing.
Brilliant, thank you. Our next question is about the application form itself. Is there a personal statement that's one has to complete, and is that taken into account when making an offer?
Okay, so there is a personal statement that you have to complete. It is not taken into account when making an offer. So you do ask, why do we ask you to complete it? Well, partly it helps us get to know you a little bit better. It's really, really good practice for you. And we give it to your mentors, or we will be giving it to your mentors in September. So they know a little bit about you. But the reason why we don't take it into account is because it's not part of our admissions policy, which you can find on the website, which tells you exactly how we make offers.
Okay, thank you very much. Could you just quickly run through the school day? Obviously, we have a 10-period school day, but are sixth formers required to be there from early birds to late night?
Okay, so you're post 16, you are young adults, so you have slightly more freedom than the rest of the school, probably slightly more freedom than some of the teachers actually. But the way that works is you must attend anything that's compulsory. So that's your lessons, that's your supervised study, that's your assemblies, that's your cathedral assemblies, those sorts of things. And then you have what we call unsupervised study or freeze, and you are allowed off-site in those. It's a privilege, not a right, although I have only removed it from one student in the last 2 years, so you know you've got to be pretty on wanting to get rid of them. So yeah, so what we allow you to do there is, if you have nothing on in the morning, and let's say you don't, your first lesson is periods 3 and 4, so it's after break, you don't need to be in till just before 11 o'clock, 10 to 11, when period 3 starts. You need to be punctual and attending your lessons, but it gives you the opportunity to have a line or study at home. The other end of the school day the same. So if you haven't got lessons period 9 and 10, you can stay and study. There's plenty of places to stay and study in school, the library, supervised study, etc. You can go into town and study, or you can go home and study. We do encourage you to keep a study day of 9 till 4. But where you do that, you're allowed a bit more flexibility.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's just about it, actually. I'm just answering a question about the EPQ and the 4th A level, which I'll answer online. Dr. Smallwood, would you like to wrap up the evening, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, great evening. Really good to hear from people who are just very enthusiastic about their own subjects and want you to do it, and I think that's a really important thing. If you're looking to where to study at A level, you want to be taught by people who are well qualified to do it, but also people who love their subjects and want you to really get stuck in. And I think that came across strongly. So I'm really pleased about that. A couple of things I would say, just as overall comments, and this I hope will kind of make sense after what you've been listening to this evening. The first thing is that the provision we have is very good. It won't suit everybody, but if you are interested in having a lot of fun, but also doing the business with the subjects, you know, really flying with that academic work, then there is no doubt that Bishops is the place for you. It will be a launch pad for whatever you want to do, whether it's degree apprenticeship, training of some sort, whatever you want to do, we will help you to realize that. So that's, you know, that's what we offer. That's what we work hard at. That's what our students find, you know, a huge advantage, a huge bonus to coming to us in the middle of Salisbury. And the other thing I would say is just a couple of comments that I always say when I go out to do presentations at schools and careers fairs, because I think it's terribly important that you talk to lots of people, really, to outline what's possible and what's not possible. If I were a sixth form student, I would view 2 priorities in the next couple of months, apart from working hard at my GCSEs. And those 2 priorities are really, wherever I'm thinking about applying to, first of all, I need to go and visit that school. Webinars are great, but webinars are not open sessions. We have an open session, and it's up in front of you on the screen there. You can see the 3rd of November. That's in the evening. And it's great because you'll meet all the subject specialists, the heads of department, and that's fantastic. But if I were you and you were thinking seriously about applying to Bishops, then you do need to see the school in the daylight hours and kind of get a feeling for the environment that we offer in the middle of Salisbury, because it's pretty special. The second comment I always say when I go out and talk to schools is, if you are applying, when you visit, you must speak to students, preferably Year 12 students. And if you're applying from outside the school, in other words, you're not in Bishops Year 11 at the moment, you need to talk to one of the students who's joined us from another school in year 11, just to get that feeling for how they feel supported and how they settle in. We've got lots of really happy and obviously very successful students, and they are great enthusiasts for what we have to offer. And I'm very happy to be able to tell you that hand on heart. So you must visit and you must talk to current students, whether you're applying to Bishops or anywhere else, because that's the way you will make sure that the decision that you make is right for you, and you are right at the centre of this process. That's probably all I've got to add, I think. Thank you very much, Sally. I'll hand back to you just to close things off.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you found it informative. We're very happy to answer any questions that you have, so you can always email 6th@bishopwordsworth.org.uk if you have any further queries. And obviously tomorrow night we're covering the arts and humanities subjects in a similar fashion to this, so please tune in if you're interested in those subjects. Thank you very much once again, and I hope you have a good evening. Goodbye.